I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would like to call the Milton Planning Commission meeting of August 28th, 2024 to order. This is a regular meeting of the City of Milton Planning Commission. I am Chair Judy Birds. This is a 7-member commission appointed by the City of Milton Mayor and City Council, created for the purpose of holding public hearings and making recommendations on rezoning, use permits, concurrent variance applications, comprehensive land use plan and plan map and other related plans, and amendments to the zoning ordinance. In attendance tonight, we have Commissioner Sumit Shah, Commissioner Brian James, Commissioner Kurt Nolte, and Commissioner Fred Edwards. Absent this evening is Commissioner Vic Jones and Commissioner Trey James. We constitute a quorum. I would like to consider and adopt the agenda with one change. I would like to move that we move up item 6A on rezoning and use permit applications prior to the consideration of preliminary plats before 5A.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passed unanimously. Do we have any general public comment?
We do not.
Okay. So first up then is consideration of the minutes from the July 24th, 2024 meeting. Do we have a motion on the minutes?
I move we approve the Wednesday, July 24th action minutes.
I'll second.
Second, okay, moved for approval by Commissioner Edwards, seconded by Commissioner Shaw. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Okay, so next up will be consideration of rezoning and use permit application. Since this is a rezoning, I have a little bit of background. Okay, so the petitions are going to be heard in the sequence listed on the published agenda. I would like to acquaint you with some of the rules and procedures conducting this meeting. The applicant and all those speaking in support of an application will be allowed a total of 10 minutes to present the petition. The applicant may choose to save some of the time for rebuttal following the presentation of the opposition. The opposition will be allowed a total of 10 minutes to present its position. If time remains, the opposition will be allowed to rebut. Since the burden of proof is on the applicant will be allowed to make closing remarks provided time remains within the allotted time. The staff of the Community Development Department will be keeping track of time and will inform you periodically of the remaining time for your presentation. Each speaker must fill out a speaker card. Does everybody have their yellow speaker card that would like to speak on this? Given to Emily or Miss Robin. They should fill out that speaker card before speaking and leave it with the staff member of the Community Development Department. All speakers will identify themselves by name, address, and organization if applicable before beginning their presentation. When any opponent of a rezoning action has made within 2 years immediately preceding the filing of a rezoning action being opposed, campaign contributions aggregating $250 or more to a local government official of the local government which will consider the application, it shall be the duty of the opponent to file a disclosure with the governing authority of the respective local government at least 5 days prior to the Planning Commission meeting. A violation of the relevant state statute constitutes a misdemeanor. Therefore, if you have contributed $250 or more to a council member and have not filed a disclosure prior to the Planning Commission meeting, the city attorney strongly suggests that you have someone else speak for your point of view. Each application has been properly filed with the Community Development Department. Signs have been posted on each site. The matter has been advertised, and the notices have been mailed to property owners affected by this zoning as required by the Milton zoning ordinance. The Planning Commission's recommendation will be forwarded to the City of Milton Mayor and City Council for final disposition at a forthcoming meeting in council chambers. The Community Development Department has reviewed each application in conjunction with the various agencies and departments, both internal and external to the city, if applicable. Community Development Department's recommendations, findings, and conclusions are here before us in written form, which has been made available to all petitioners and to the public. Demonstration of any sort within the council chamber is prohibited, so please refrain from any applause, dialogue with the person speaking, or outburst. Please turn off all cell phones or place them on silent. All remarks will be addressed by the Planning Commission. Please show the same respect to the person speaking that you will expect to receive yourself. In addition, the applicant shall not submit material to the Planning Commission during the meeting unless requested to do so by the Commission. All material that you wish to be reviewed by the Commission in consideration of your application should be submitted to the staff of the Community Development Department to be included in the normal distribution of packages to the Commission. Finally, to the applicant, if your petition is deferred by the Planning Commission in accordance with the Milton zoning ordinance, you are required to update or attain a new sign for reposting. Failure to update or repost will result in further delay. There are no exceptions. So with that, we will hear staff presentation on U2402, VC 2402 at 900 Pleasant Hollow Trail.
And before that presentation, I would just like to say that, I'd just like to say I've got a conflict on this, so I'd need to recuse myself from this one.
Okay, great, thanks.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. We have a presentation to show you, and it is a request for a special use permit with concurrent variances. And it concerns the piece of property that you see highlighted in red up on your screen. It's located at the intersection of Providence Road and Pleasant Hollow Trail. The applicant is requesting a use permit to utilize the existing accessory barn that's on their property as an artist studio for the purpose of operating their bookbinding business. And in order to do that, they would also need, in addition to the special use permit, 4-part concurrent variance. The structure that we're talking about that the applicant would like to use will be modified on the inside, but the exterior will be left as it is. The applicant makes custom books and leather goods, things like that themselves, and they also have 3 part-time employees that is part of their business. The existing accessory structure has a separate entrance gate and gravel drive, which is screened from the street, and their hours of operation are standard business hours, Monday through Friday, 9 to 6. Now, the variances, as I mentioned, are 4 parts. The first is to allow the accessory structure to remain in front of the primary residence. The second is to allow the existing accessory structure to remain as is without being designed to look like a commercial structure. The third is to allow the existing accessory structure to remain as is without having the required amount of voids to solids, windows, and that sort of thing, which is required for commercial structures. And then finally, to allow the existing accessory structure to remain as is without having the same window arrangements as the side with the principal entrance. And those are just normal requirements for commercial structures, which this would essentially become, but it's in a residential area, so those variances are required. The property is zoned AG1, and it is part of the rural Milton overlay district. It is very far removed from the urban growth boundary. The future land use map anticipates that it will remain agricultural, and it is identified with the agriculture, equestrian, estate, residential land use category. And as you can see from the site plan, the primary residence is to the left of your screen. There is a separate entrance with gravel drive and parking area off of Pleasant Hollow, which would be used by the accessory structure. And the existing accessory structure is off by itself on the right, and it's surrounded primarily by trees, very difficult to see from Providence Road. This is a view from Providence Road. You can see a little bit of the red roof there. If you're heading away from the property on Providence Road, you can see a little bit right on the corner. And then when you're on Pleasant Hollow, you can have a little bit better visibility of the barn structure. Further away, it gets harder to see. And then this is the primary residence associated with the property. The accessory structure, as you can see, is a barn frame building, and it has windows on some of the sides, a door in the front. So with regard to the community information meeting that was held on July 24th, there were members of the public present, and they were interested in knowing how the use permit works and whether or not, if this is approved, this use would run with the property in perpetuity. The Design Review Board also took a look at this application at their August 6th meeting. They requested that there be a limitation on the definition of an artist studio so that it doesn't go beyond the scope of what is anticipated. And they also recommended that the accessory structure stay exactly the same on the outside, which is what the applicant intends to do. In terms of public participation, the applicant held a meeting on August 8th. There were 7 members of the public in attendance, and they sat with the applicant and drafted conditions that were amenable to both sides, which were that the artist studio shall be allowed to produce small-scale handmade art, including books, leather goods, paper goods, jewelry, pottery, painting, and sewn goods. Again, the limitation on the use so that it doesn't expand beyond the scope. The artist studio shall not be open to the public at any time. No signage shall be permitted. Art studio shall at no time have more than 3 part-time employees, and the owner must reside on the property. And again, all of these are what the members of the public were in support of and what the applicant agreed to. Staff has also reviewed the plans, and only the fire marshal made comments about the fact that this is basically going to become a commercial structure, and so plans have to be submitted and permits, that sort of thing, in order to meet requirements for commercial structures, and all of that has to have a final certificate of occupancy before business can start operating. Their environmental analysis was found to be sufficient. And then we look at the standards of review for a use permit. What we find is that the proposed use is allowed with a use permit subject to the City Council's approval. In terms of the suitability, we find that in fact this is a suitable site for the use if we impose specific conditions, which we intend to do at the end of the presentation. The use permit does not appear to violate any ordinances or regulations, should have a minimum effect on traffic, and the parking that is shown is located where it should be, adjacent to the facility and away from the existing home. The creek buffers there are to the rear of the primary structure, so there's a lot of open space behind the main residence. There's also a lot of screening to the west to help protect the adjoining subdivision. The hours of operation are reasonable. No additional lighting is shown to be proposed on the site, and the existing entrance is separate with adequate ingress, parking, and egress from the subject site. So as you know, we review the application against the variance standards that there are 4 of, and what we found is that they meet all of the requirements, and so we are recommending approval of the use permit with all 4 of the concurrent variances, subject to conditions. And these conditions are that the use of the property be restricted to an artist studio for books, leather goods, paper goods, jewelry, pottery, painting, sewn goods, or similar arts as approved by the Community Development Director, to restrict the hours of operation Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., restrict the hours of delivery to Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., restrict the number of employees to 4, no walk-in retail sales may occur on the subject property, no signage shall be permitted on the property for the art studio, that substantial compliance with the revised site plan submitted to the Community Development Department on June 13th, 2024 be adhered to, and that finally all construction complies with the chief building official and fire marshal requirements for the structure since it's being essentially converted to a commercial use. And that concludes our presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Any questions at this time?
Thank you.
Thank you. So next up, if we could hear from the applicant and any of those in support of the applicants.
Hello. My name is Courtney Bartik, and this is Andy Campbell. We live at 900 Pleasant Hollow Trail. We have both been residents of Milton for over 15 years. I've lived at Pleasant Hollow Trail, New Providence Road, and Six Hills Lane. I lived in the Alpharetta Roswell area for over 30 years, and I'm proud to call this beautiful city home. For 5 cold years, I lived in Ohio, and I started bookbinding in the attic of my home. Then in 2009, I moved my craft room into the basement of my first Milton home. I saw some success with selling my art and thought, hey, it's a good idea to grow into a business, right? I grew the outreach, the number of artists on payroll, the floor space, etc. But a handmade artisan business is a hard thing to scale. And growing it didn't make me happy, especially while trying to juggle the demands of a life as a mom and an entrepreneur. So when life had me at crossroads, I had to make a difficult decision to scale my business back, returning once again to the home. On our 3 acres sits a beautiful, perfectly sized barn of less than 1,200 square feet. Knowing that the city of Milton created a special use permit for Artist Studio in 2014, and there is a precedent set for this exact type of thing, we jumped into this process, doing it the right way, asking for the special use permit and associated variances and following the city's process. If I had my business inside my home, the special use would not be required. But together, Andy and I have 6 kids and 3 animals, and even though the house is big, it's not big enough for all of us, plus 24 large leather hides, reams and reams of paper, rolls of material, dusty bookboard, etc. Having the dedicated space without the kids and I stepping over each other will allow my little artisan business to stay alive. Bookbinding is a dying art, and I'd like it to survive. There is a perfectly good building that we own on our property. It's perfect for this art. It has its own separate gated entrance, its own parking pad, plenty of space to store my supplies, and just enough space for me and my 2 part-time employees who have been with me for over 10 years combined. There will be no customers, no visitors, except maybe occasionally from my mother. No signs. Our deliveries and pickups will correspond with regular scheduled shipments. It's a minor change, really. We want to maintain the barn's charm. After all, it is a quintessential Milton barn. Anyone who drives by on Providence Road knows this barn with the red metal roof. The design committee wants us to preserve its look, making minimal changes. We too are in agreement. We have been fortunate to have so much support from our community and our neighbors, and we hope to have your support as well on our request for the special use permit and associated variances. Thank you. Okay, is that it?
Yeah.
Here's some of the stuff we do. So these are journals and albums. I lay large hides out on the floor on my knees. I cut the leather up and make these kinds of things. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sarah Moen.
Sarah Moen, 130 Providence Plantation Drive. I'm speaking tonight in support because they did this the right way. I live in Providence Plantation subdivision, and as you all know, that's the winery debacle. I do not want the neighbors in Pleasant Hollow to go through what we went through, and it doesn't look like they're going to. But I wanted to speak tonight because this is the committee where the winery debacle kind of lost its footing. And that was mostly because even though Ms. McDonald made really wise recommendations, they were ignored because our neighborhood and the winery neighborhood had HOAs and covenants and restrictions to govern them. Pleasant Hollow does not have any HOA. They do not have covenants restrictions. So the city needs to be really responsible in making sure that they are covered. Mr. Campbell and Ms. Bardig are fine with conditions on the use permit, as you've heard. And those are echoed in the recommendations in the report that you have tonight from ComDev. Because this is not a business license, but a use permit that is tied to zoning and will run with the property into perpetuity, very tight conditions need to be placed on to permit, on the permit to safeguard the neighbors in Pleasant Hollow. I have only one recommendation that I would ask you guys to consider. It kind of goes in with they're not having any visitors, any customers on site, but I would respectfully request that you include no on-site events, not because of the current owners, but because of future owners who could move in and have a business there, that there will be no art shows, no art sales, no art classes, et cetera, things along those lines, and or the permits that could accompany such events, like a temporary alcohol license if they were going to have an art show, parking, things of those nature. That would protect the neighbors from any future owners of the property in the event that Mr. Campbell and Ms. Bardig sell, but they're still in line with and won't hinder the business plan that the applicants have presented to the city. So that's it. I'm in support. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the last public comment.
Great. And do we have any comments in opposition?
No.
Okay. So what questions does everybody have?
I have one from staff on our definitions list of the word artist studio. Do these qualify what they have proposed? You feel comfortable under that?
Yes, I mean, the artist studio definition is very broad, and that is why we recommended much more narrower conditions of zoning or conditions of the use permit, so.
Okay.
Does that definition preclude some of the things that the public comment pertain to about the concern about having art shows, sales, events?
Correct. That'll be the purview of you all. If you would
Okay.
like to add that, I would make a comment that we do allow special events up to 6, I believe it's 6 occurrences. It's now under Parks and Recreation ordinance, no longer under our zoning ordinance. But but there has to be a very large threshold even to meet having to have a special event occur. For instance, if they wanted to do a fundraiser and they wanted to serve alcohol, then they would need that. But if it's your prerogative to add that condition, then that would take away that right to have that special event. Obviously, they could have, family gatherings, and there could be, 20 cars out there with all their family. Sounds like they have a large family. So that wouldn't preclude anything that was a personal type situation, like a Christmas gathering or 4th of July or whatever. So.
There was discussion from the Design Review Board about leaving the building exterior as is. And if in the future they wanted to make changes to the look and feel of the exterior of the building, what would need to be done? Do they have to reapply? Do they need to look at it for a variance to the use permit? What happens if they do want to make changes to the exterior?
Generally, for a non-residential structure, once this is approved, then if they do want to, other than obviously maintenance type issues, new roof, painting, blah, 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 that's fine. But if they wanted to do anything like punch in additional windows or do an expansion, they wanted to expand, they would have to come back and get a new use permit because the density would increase. But if they wanted to just change the pitch of the roof and all those kind of things, minimum, they would go to the design review board because it's considered a commercial building. And that would have to be approved by them. And if for whatever reason they needed additional variances, they would go to the Board of Zoning Appeals to get any additional variances. So only if they expanded the structure and the footprint, we would ask them to come back, which I highly doubt that they would do after going through this process. So.
I guess I saw in the packet the list of homeowners or property owners within the quarter mile or whatever. What has been the input? They said there were 7 people at one of the recent public comment or public meetings. I guess what are the, can we bring the applicant up to find out what the neighbors are actually saying? I mean, I know like the woman with the wine, we've run into some of this before, so it's.
So the neighbors who came, one lives directly behind our home. One lives across the street on Pleasant Hollow Trail. The one that's directly behind our home is off of Providence Road. And then there were 2 other neighbors, a total of 7 people. One other one down on Pleasant Hollow Trail. All of them were just curious, and once they found out it's not open to the public, and, they weren't really concerned about it. And they really were just curious and asking questions. Our neighbor across the street, who also came to the Architectural Review Committee, they were concerned about the conditions as it relates to if we sell the property, what a subsequent owner might do, which is why we came up with those specific conditions as it relates to what an art studio is and our definition of that. That would be one of the additional conditions as part of the use permit. So that was really the discussion. No one else was, it was really just curiosity and really in support, honestly. Once they found out it's not open to the public, I think that was the primary concern.
It sounds like this is a commercial business. I mean, we're going under art studio, but it's really a bookbinding type company. And is that more accurate? I mean,
I think because of the use permit, that puts it under a commercial category. But as it relates to the nature of the business itself, if we did not have the barn, we would be doing it as a home-based business, and we would have it out of our home in our basement. But because we want to do it out of the barn, that triggers the special use permit requirement. So it's really a home-based business that we're doing in an accessory structure, which is why we're going through this process.
and currently Blue Sky Papers is based in Roswell, correct?
Correct.
But it is in a commercial area right now.
It is currently.
Okay.
Correct, yeah.
And would they require a business license for this? The
Yes,
city?
yes. In fact, that's how it kind of got, we became aware of it, is that the applicant submitted their business license, and one of the regulations at this point in time is that you can't have a home-based business in an accessory structure. So is that exact, following the rules that kind of caught our attention, so.
And the fact that the way it looks, it is an accessory in front of the home.
Yes, so
But
it was non-compliant. Like typically we do not go looking for trouble. We have enough that kind of comes up through through our citizens and all that. But when somebody comes for either a building permit or in this case, the use permit, that we see that there was an accessory structure technically in front from a geometry point of view, of the lot, then we ask it to be fixed. So now forever, let's say they want to just add another accessory structure somewhere on their property, they can just pull a building permit. And so long as it's behind the house, we're not going to make them fix that because it's already fixed.
okay, so you determined then the front of the house is the way it looks, faces
So-
the other way, not.
So I'll
In
just
front
go
of.
through my geometry lesson in a good way. I don't mean in a negative way. So when you're on a corner lot, the way we determine the front is the shortest frontage of the two roads. And because the shortest frontage is on Providence,
Right.
then that's the front. And then Pleasant Hollow is what we call the side corner or the side front. And that has a 40-foot and Pleasant Hollow has 60. So that determined that even though the house is facing Pleasant Hollow, that we don't care which way the house faces. It's all about geometry and where it sits on the property based on the dimensions of the lot. So,
Okay.
yeah.
I say that for future reference.
Yes, no problem.
Do you have any concerns about the proposed restriction of no art shows, no special sales events, no art classes?
Not on its face, meaning as it relates to this business and not doing that, that's fine. But as it relates to gatherings, it's our home, obviously. So
Yeah.
we don't want to be restricted from having
You can
whatever any
still
other
have things.
homeowner can have on their property.
You can still have Thanksgiving family over.
Right.
I would like to add that all the neighbors are in support of this and have actually asked me to do a class for them. So I don't want to ever have classes or any kind of parties for the business specifically, but if you guys are going to restrict that, if you'd allow me to have one for my neighbors, because they are excited about it.
Now, could she have that art class in the basement of her home?
Sure, yeah.
It's the use of the accessory structure.
Right, this
Yeah.
this is one of those funny ones, right?
Yeah.
You know, this becomes a commercial building now, right? The barn. You could do it out of your basement, which would make perfect sense, but that's where I'm kind of, it's just kind of one of those strange situations that, you know, I guess that's got to be, I noticed too that the public comment was the concerns about this, you know, the use permit going in perpetuity. So what that means is this could only ever be an artist studio. And again, I'm still kind of caught on the artist studio
Okay,
versus
so-
binding business, but
So in perpetuity, basically what happens is, we just didn't want to call it artist studio because you all as a board and the council approved another artist studio about 8 years ago that basically is a blacksmith with very heavy duty equipment that's on Birmingham Highway. So we don't want that same use to be in the middle of a subdivision. So that is why we honed in on, obviously, the applicant was very amenable to coming up with additional conditions. So basically, to use this barn as an artist studio in the future, if they were to sell, would have to be the same exact use that's outlined in the conditions of zoning. And that's pretty narrow.
And it's not open to the public. I think that's
Right.
when, as it relates to art classes, if something's not open to the public, I'm not sure how you could have.
Have
a class
shows
if it's
and
not open
events
to the
and-
public, in a show too, like, I don't know how that would work. So I don't think those are, I think the not open to the public covers everything as it relates to.
Any other questions?
One other, somewhere, and I can't find it right now, you proposed, I think, a addition of a restroom in that building. Is there anything that we have to have in that regards?
So that is why, I mean, I think the intent is they're still working it out with the building official. So that's why there's a condition at the very end to meet all the regulations or
Oh, okay.
requirements of the building official and the fire marshal. So they're definitely allowed to have a restroom.
Right.
And it's just trying to be figured out exactly, is it going to be a restroom for the employees or was it a restroom for the private use? So, but yes, they
Yeah,
can
I
have
didn't have a
restroom.
problem
They have a
with them, I
septic
just didn't-
system. They have a septic system already set up for that barn that's there. They just have to hook
Oh,
up to
okay.
it.
Fine. That's all I have.
It already has separate meter for electric and water.
Yeah,
I do appreciate you guys doing this the right way. You
absolutely.
know, coming
Thank
and
you.
Good,
doing this.
a
And I
very,
guess-
very good job.
Yes, and And I guess my only comments to, oh, are we closing? I mean,
Yeah, so any other public comment, questions? But that will close public comment.
I guess just for our discussion, initially, based on the packet, I was thinking, no, this is, commercial coming into a residential area, even though it's permitted, with the employees and all that, that it was more of a bookbinding. But, during this discussion, I think a couple things have changed my mind. Number one, this could be done out of their home. So it seems kind of silly in order to do that, to be able to do it out of your home, but then a building that you've bought that's on there. Number two, the fact that the building is existing. That holds weight with me. So I guess that's kind of where I am. Anybody else have any comments?
Or if the barn was attached to the house, they could do it there. Yeah.
Right.
Correct. So it's one of these silly kind of things that I think, we don't want to be too punitive by any stretch. I think it's a great use of that. So if there's no more comment, I'd like to make a motion that we recommend approval of U24-02 to include the artist studio in the single family residence, along with the conditions as outlined for the variances.
So I think you need to make a motion on the use permit with the conditions and the variances.
And the
Okay.
4-part concurrent,
And
if
the
you're
4-part
approving,
variance.
recommending approval of the 4-part concurrent variance, yes.
Okay. So I'd like to do that.
Second.
So we have a motion from Commissioner Nolte to recommend approval of use permit 2402 with the recommended conditions and the 4-part variances for 2402.
I'll second that
Seconded
motion.
with a second from Commissioner Edwards.
Yeah, you stated it in a way that I was looking for. The one question I know that there was discussion of a condition that wasn't listed by staff that wouldn't be included based on the motion.
Correct. And I know, at least in my opinion, because of the comment that it's already not open to the public as a condition, that it should be covered on the special events. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes 4-0. Okay, Sumit, wherever you are, you can come back. Okay. I have more to read. Next on the agenda is a consideration of preliminary plats. The Planning Commission is tasked by the city's subdivision ordinance to conduct a public hearing on proposed preliminary plats that have found to be complete by the Community Development Department. At the conclusion of public hearing, the Planning Commission is required to review the proposed preliminary plat and provide comments and make recommendations regarding the plat to the Community Development Director. The Planning Commission does not approve or reject the proposed preliminary plat, but merely provides comments or recommendations based on the public hearing and the Planning Commission's review of the proposed preliminary plat. Miss Tracy Wild.
Good evening. The preliminary plat that I will be presenting tonight is for Hamby Manor. Hamby Manor is located on Hamby Road. It's just east of Stonehenge subdivision, just north of the Bent Grass Farms subdivision, and just before you get to the Forsyth-Fulton County line. This is a 20.269 acre parcel. The applicant is proposing for 14 single-family detached lots. That would propose a density of 0.69 units per acre. This is a view of the site plan for the proposed development. It shows the layout of the 14 single-family lots. Lot sizes range from 1 acre to 1.8 acres. The private street is proposed to be gated. There is a proposal for an internal sidewalk on the south side of the private street. And there is a proposal for detention area on an individual lot. The applicant has provided site distance requirements that meet the 500-foot dimension, looking left and right onto Hamby Road. And this subdivision is pretty straightforward. This presentation is pretty quick. We have staff available and the applicant available should you have additional questions.
Great. Tracy, what is around, what's around this subdivision? To the left, to the right?
Go back. So residential property, the manor is located north just off the screen up top. And then residential property to the left and right.
And and you've reviewed this and everything here is what we call development by right? So
That's
that-
correct. Zoning is AG1, so this would be by right. Single family, 1 acre lots minimum. This is a traditional development in that some of our large lot developments proposed don't have to have the detention or stormwater facility on a separate lot. This, with being 1 acre, proposes that individual septic in a common development.
Septic.
So all of the hydrology for this development is handled by this stormwater facility.
I did not see a tree assessment. That will be done later.
I believe there was a tree survey included in the set. Our arborist did review. She had no concerns at this time with the canopy coverage being met.
It wasn't a pretty picture. It was a long
Yes.
list.
It was a long
Exactly.
list.
That Commissioner McNeese looked at. So.
That is correct. That is correct.
Memorized it too.
Yep.
One other part of the package, it's here on your screen now. It's a little difficult to read, but it is a concept for house locations and where those potential septic, primary and secondary systems would go in relationship to the soil survey that was done. Again, this is regulated by Fulton County. But at this stage, we ask the applicant to provide a concept of where those house locations might be.
But as it relates to that list, and again, we're only in a preliminary plat conference here, but that looks like there's a tremendous amount of trees to be removed.
There will be trees to be removed. They will have to comply with tree canopy coverage per our tree ordinance,
Okay.
as well as recompense for any specimen trees should they be slated for removal or for disturbing more than 25 foot of the critical root zone.
You did say it was, I'm sorry. You did say that it was septic, on
Yes,
septic.
yes, it is septic.
Is this near a development that was Cherokee to the north?
It is not. No, so this is just south. So if you know where the second construction entrance, I guess, for the manor is at off of Hamby, this is along that, just before you get to the Fulton County, Forsyth County line.
Okay,
This is further way south. It's south of.
much further
of
south
The
from.
manor. So
Correct.
it's the
Right,
southern
okay.
side versus the northern side.
Do we have any public comments?
Well, you, what? Can you fill out a card? But in the meantime, we have a William Lee who would like to speak.
Yep. Does the applicant wish to speak?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. The applicant is here
Okay.
to speak.
Do we usually have the applicant go
Yes,
first? Okay.
yes. Mr. Underwood?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission. Ethan Underwood with Miles Hansford. Our address is at 178 South Main Street in Alpharetta. If I may, staff's presentation is very, very good. I think it covers most of the issues that we were going to address, but we'll be happy to answer any questions. The developer is KJ Luxury Homes. They will be building, quite frankly, luxury homes. The homes, 14, let's see here, let's get the slideshow rolling. Again, this is from the, are you able to see? Or, there we go. This is from the Fulton County Tax Assessor's website. But importantly, as stated, this is right on the county line. If you're going just south of the manor on Hopewell Road and you get to the roundabout, turn toward Hamby as it's going, and you can see it's very, very close to the Forsyth County line. However, we're cognizant there will be no sewer lines extended into the city. Water is available to the south and to the west. We still have to work out the sewer easements, but those are available both in Stonehenge and in the Bentgrass Farms to the south. Stormwater, we will get into a little bit more. Again, here's a Google Earth site. You're correct, there are significant numbers of trees, but the details of that have not quite all been engineered, but we're not asking for any deviation from the tree ordinance. The city's tree ordinance will be complied with. In the site plan, this shows that north is to your left on this site. 14 lots. Stormwater is going to be captured in the central road with catch basins, and it goes into the detention pond. So it's got a single detention pond. You can see a stream on the southwest corner. So it will be
Detention?
detention.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So it will be discharged into that stream. So no stormwater is crossing the boundary line into any of the neighbors' property lines. So what can you expect to be built? Homes will start minimum 4,500 square feet of finished area. These are some of the homes that KJ Luxury constructs. They're very, very high end. Obviously, they're going to be going for the modern farmhouse style, which is fits very well in Milton. But these will bring significant property increases to the surrounding area, set a good tone in this portion that is still yet to be developed in Milton, but it's slowly creeping toward the county line. So we feel these will be good neighbors. They're on large lots. All setbacks are complied with. And of course, all of the design requirements to be good neighbors, keeping stormwater off people's property, maintaining adequate tree coverage will all be complied with. So we do have a complying site plan. We're certainly happy to take suggestions from the Planning Commission and from the public, and we'll reserve any time that we have remaining for discussion and rebuttal. Okay, thank you.
3 minutes later. Okay. Any other public comment?
We do. Mr. William Lee?
Hi, my name is William Lee, 310 Crowd Apple Court. I moved to Milton for many reasons. I moved here for peace and quiet, for safety, for less traffic. There's a lot of traffic in the Atlanta metro area. I was pleased to see in the UDC that was recently adopted that one of the purposes of the UDC is to lessen congestion on the roads and streets. That's actually the first purpose laid out in the UDC. I am concerned that if you replace a single house with 14 houses, you're going to be increasing congestion and traffic on the roads and streets. Has there been any traffic study done or investigation into the impact of the increased traffic to this area? That is one concern that I have. Another concern that I have kind of gets to Mr. Edwards' comment about the trees. As an owner of a neighboring property, we have experienced that there's a lot of wildlife in this area, deer living in those woods. And my concern is that if those woods get more developed, that the deer will be spending more time on our properties and exposing us to tick-borne illnesses. I also saw in the UDC that it is in the director's rights to encourage the site developer to, sorry, give me 1 second here, to design the subdivision in a manner that will reduce unwanted noise, lights on neighboring lots. As someone who is concerned about peace and quiet, I would ask that the director work with the developer and the neighbors to create a design that reduces unwanted noise and lights.
Thank you.
The next comment card is from Cheryl. Becky, thank you.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Vecchione at 315 Crabapple Court, and this is going to back up directly onto me. I'm concerned that there's going to be a lot of new homes put on there, but I'm more concerned about, I think it's going to take up the whole length of my 3.5 acres on the one end. I have a retention pond on my property. How is that going to affect the stream on my property and the retention pond on my property? And what is the buffer for trees that they're going to be taking down behind my property is what's going to be put back there. More trees, a fence. You know, I'm used to having all that property, and I realize when somebody sells their property and they want to have it developed, it's their prerogative. But my concern is that that whole subdivision is going to back up to me. So, you know, when will we find out, or I find out what the buffer is going to be between my property and their property? There's already sort of a debate as to the property line, because when we moved in over 20 years ago, where we thought our property line was, doesn't seem to be where the property line is, because when the people behind me, the Monroes, were doing a sort of a site, they had said that where I thought my property line wasn't. So it's cutting off more of my backyard and more of my property. So that's a lot of my concern also. And, you know, is there going to be a lighting? Is there going to be a pool tennis, any of that, you know, that might cause noise or whatever? And like he just said, I have a problem with deer as it is, but that's really going to, and I'm worried about water runoff to my property. Because when it rains hard, the creeks on my property overflow as it is now. So what is that going to do when there's a new subdivision put in, more concrete, more runoff? You know, those are my concerns, especially the buffer between me and the subdivision, and where is the retention pond going to be in relation to my property?
Thank you.
Ricky and Libby Guida.
Hello. My name's Ricky Gita, and my wife Libby and I live at 3278 Hamby. So we're the neighbor directly to the west of the lot in the proposed project. So if you look at the schematic of the plat, the entire bottom side of that is directly adjacent to our property. So, you know, some of the concerns we obviously have, similar to what others have said so far. First of all, through other discussions I've had, I know that there's been some energy within Milton to try to influence. I realize this is a by right development, but to still try to influence property to be developed in larger lots. And so, my view would be this would be a perfect example of a place where that can make a lot of sense. This is beautiful farmland. The Monroes did a great job with it over all the years. But is that a consideration to have incentives and a protocol in place that would encourage larger homes, less density? Secondly, and others have said this, what is the plan around privacy and protecting the surrounding neighbors? Our front porch looks directly into what's been a pasture on the other side of our fence. And behind that, a tree line I'm not an arborist, but I'm guessing 100-year-old trees, size and scope wise. And, now seeing the back of 7 houses and the pool behind the house and all of the other stuff, what can be done to make sure that privacy is protected, both for us, but also for new tenants and new owners that buy the new properties and would have to look over at us. Third, what is the tree canopy plan? Like you see from the pictures, and you can certainly see if you are there in person. It's a very dense, lots of old trees that are just enormous in many cases. And my concern is keeping as many of those as possible, because taking a bunch down and then obviously replacing them with smaller trees, we're not going to see the same coverage in most of our lifetimes. I think I heard reference to this, but we want to ensure all buffers and setbacks are properly adhered to. And is there an opportunity to create more of a buffer between us? Conversely, if assuming this moves forward, is there a way to prevent any sort of variances coming back and trying to make them smaller? Certainly we don't want to have anything smaller than what's required. Another question is how will this impact the creek? There's a creek that runs behind a lot of our houses, and it runs down into a pond that one of our neighbors who couldn't be here tonight has, and is in the process of removing silt that's developed there over the years. So what's the plan to make sure that that doesn't get worse and that the remediation work he's doing on his pond doesn't go for naught? I share the concern I heard earlier about the traffic impact. Hamby's a pretty busy cut through for a lot of people. 14 houses where a farm used to exist is going to create a lot more congestion. FedEx guys turning in, service people coming in, family members, and particularly making a left turn. If you're coming from Highway 9, a left turn into that's going to be pretty onerous. And yeah, I guess just lastly, again, reiterating, what can we do to create some sort of a buffer between us on the sides and on the back that would prevent noise, protects the privacy of the existing properties. Thank you.
William Buchanan.
Thank you. I'm Dr. William Buchanan. I'm a psychologist. My practice is up in Alpharetta on Old Milton Parkway. I built the office on Old Milton Parkway 20-something years ago. I was actually born in Fulton County. I went to North Fulton High School, which doesn't exist anymore. Back then, North Fulton was Buckhead, and this was Milton County when they built the school. But I've lived in Georgia all my life, lived in Atlanta area all my life, got my doctorate from Georgia State, did my undergraduate at Emory.
And sir, your current residence is, we need your address.
3268 Hamby Road.
Okay, great, thank you.
So Ricky and I are neighbors. We share a driveway, so we have one driveway between the two of us. That driveway is 900 feet long, and it goes within 10 feet of the property line the whole way down from Hamby Road to the back of the property. We originally had well, we didn't, but originally there's a 42-acre horse farm there. It was divided into 3 lots. And you guys said you're going to build 3 houses on those 3 lots, 42 acres. So I have 7.7 acres. Ricky has 12 acres. DeLay family has 23 acres, I think. So we're concerned because our property is literally next door. I mean, our property touches their property. So I'm concerned about the buffer. I'm concerned about the deer. I mean, a lot of the deer are there. Now they don't have enough free area. And when they build this, they're coming to our property because we have trees, and we have between the two of us, we have 19 acres, which is what, 1 acre different than this property. So between the two of us, we have basically the same size. And the deer we see all the time in that field, they're coming to us. So I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about the buffer. One of the things I'm concerned about is we talked about the trees and canopy, and I absolutely want the trees and canopy, but I'm also worried about a invasive species, which is a nuisance, called Chinese privet. I have a gardener that lives in Delaware 6 months out of the year, and he's down here 6 months out of the year, and he works for me 20 hours a week. And for the last two winters, for 6 months, he's in there getting rid of the Chinese privet. And in my property, it looks great because y'all know Chinese privet? Are y'all familiar? Mm-hmm. It is horrible. It is terrible. It just takes over. And there's a lot of Chinese privet right on the property line, and I don't go into the property line and cut down my neighbor's Chinese privet, but I would like to see it gone. And I'd like to see something better there as some sort of buffer. So that's what I'm asking for. I'm asking you to consider the density, and I'm asking you to consider the wildlife. I'm asking you to consider just the nature of Milton. I mean, on your symbol, you have the horse. And that's what our property was. It was a horse farm for many years. When I moved into the property, the Monroes had a cow, and we loved hearing the cow moo. They got rid of the cow about a year ago, and we missed the cow. But, that's where we moved in when we built the property there. That's the environment we wanted. That's the environment we have. And it's going to change with 14 houses next door along our 900-foot dividing line. So I just wanted to let you know my thoughts about that. Thank you, sir and ma'am.
The next speaker is James Uri.
Good evening. I'm James Uri. I'm at 3450 Hamby Road. I want to acknowledge that I'm in support of this project. It looks very good. I've seen KJ homes throughout the community, building throughout Milton and Alpharetta. And as an engineer myself, I look at houses on a day-to-day base. I just love the aesthetics of architecture. And looking at his work, I've never met him before, but it brings a lot of value to the community. So I would like to support this project. I'm actually adjacent to the project. It's running down. I don't have my bearings correctly.
It's to the east, and
It's to the
yeah,
east.
and
So the east property line abuts my property line, and one of the concerns are, they mentioned it would have a gate, but will they have a fence around the perimeter of the property? And how are they accessing water to that property? Those are my two concerns. And the last concern is if this project gets approved, coming around the curve from Highway 9, the speed is so aggressive, and when you're stopping, it could easily be a potential for accidents. You have to put on your flasher to make a left into my property all the time now with the traffic there, so that no one rear ends you. So with that coming in, that would be another concern of mine. But other than that, I've seen his work. It's really have brought value to this area, to be quite frankly. I've been in Alpharetta 28 years. My business, which is down the street, that's how I got this notification, was my company is off of 9320 Industrial Trace. So I got this letter. I didn't get the notification at the property at 3450, and that's why I came. But it's an added value to the community, to be quite frank. Our land value have increased tremendously, and his work is superb. And so I'm in support of it. But those are my three concerns.
That concludes any comment cards.
Great. Any questions for staff or the applicant? One I wanted to understand was the creek that is on the, I have to get my bearings because I'm used to north being up. The creek that is on the southwest corner looks like it also wraps around and is on the southeast corner? Because it looks like there's stream buffers in each corner.
You'll allow me, I'm going to pull up the other graphic.
Each south corner.
So you're talking here on the screen?
Looks like there's a stream there, but there's also a marked state stream buffer on the other corner behind lot 7.
Yeah. By the pink box. There's another.
By the pink box. There's stream
Okay.
buffers there as well on our plat.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So what I wondered though is which way did these streams flow? Are they flowing toward Hamby or away from Hamby, or kind of more east-west or west-east?
So
anybody
Jerry
know?
was unable to come tonight, but as I understand it, there is off-site drainage in this area that comes down through the property. The proposal from this plan, and Ethan, please correct me, is to pick up this water that would then bypass this system. All of the other water coming from the top of the screen down to the road would be picked up in the road and then piped to the rear of lots 12 through 8. They would then be directed to a treatment train where there would be runoff reduction taking place in that area before it then discharges the water into the stormwater facility, the detention pond here. And then that detention pond would detain that water until it's released at the appropriate rate into the storm, into the stream. Likewise, there would be a system here that picks up water at the top of the screen that then runs down into another treatment train for runoff reduction that again would be discharged into the detention area before it's discharged into the state waters, into the creek.
But just for clarity, the setback says if there's trees in those setbacks, those do not get disturbed, correct?
Between setbacks of the lots?
Of the stream.
Of the stream, yes, that is correct.
So there's no disturbance of trees within the stream buffers.
That's correct. They would maintain a 75-foot buffer.
I know we had some discussion on traffic. Do I recall that Hamby was on the list to be reduced from 45 to 35 that was recently approved by the council?
I do not know that for a fact. We can check on that though.
Okay. I'm pretty sure it was.
Yeah, I thought it was.
Yes, we think it is. So I think, the line of sight was done at 45, but I think it has been reduced to 35. The well on lot 14 that's going to be filled and sealed, if it's filled and sealed, can a septic field still be within the 50-foot perimeter that's marked? Because it's showing that they're going to put the septic field within 50 feet, but can they do that because it is now filled and sealed?
It's abandoned and.
It's abandoned,
yes,
well, not
and
only
capped.
abandoned, but it's
Capped.
filled and sealed, okay. I have other questions, but I'll let my colleagues interject.
Okay, these are for the applicant. I guess the last two or three that we've seen, is this going to be a gated community?
It is. It is a gated. Right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. If I'm on Hamby Road and I get off, where will the post office box be?
In the rear.
Yeah, I did not notice that.
It's
It looks like
at the end of
It's actually in it's in
cul-de-sac.
this area, in the cul-de-sac. There's a cul-de-sac just
Oh,
before
there it is.
on the
I
lot
see
of
it.
the detention.
Okay.
Mhm. That's where the mail kiosk will
Okay.
be.
Because my concern was that seeing that we had a problem of the gate being too close. That was why I asked the question.
The city regulates that because you have to have enough stacking capacity for either an Amazon van to come in or vehicles that are turning in so that they're not backing up into Hamburg.
Right, but we've had others where that was so close. If two cars were at the box, that's why I asked the question. The other car was out on the highway. Now, staying with that same, not the mailbox, but with the school bus pulling up there. We have 14 homes?
Yes, sir.
Is there any talk about a pull-off where that school bus can, I'm sure it's not going to come into the subdivision.
We have not considered a bench or any other kind of a location for people to sit for school buses, but we can certainly take that into consideration, sir.
Okay. While you're there, what are the price ranges?
Prices, they'll start in the low 2 millions.
Pardon?
They'll start in the low 2 millions.
Okay.
So, in looking at your plans for your septic fields, if a resident were to put in a pool behind their property, since the septic lines seem to be at the back of the lots, is the idea that they would most likely be close to the home?
Obviously, you would want the pool to be closer to the home, if at all possible, just for convenience of the people using the swimming pool. But that'll be part of the design plans as these homes are built. They'll be working with potential buyers, and they can take that into consideration.
Also, did you explore, like Ricky mentioned, the large lots? Again, big push in Milton. Was that anywhere close to being economically feasible, or?
Unfortunately, it was not. With 20 lots, you're looking at it would cut the yield in half. So our client is requesting the 1 acre lot minimum.
I think everybody would, nobody likes seeing the 1.01 acre lot or the, but again, that's why we've got property rights. That's why we've written the code the way we did. That, you have to have that 1 acre minimum. But again, obviously we'd all like to see larger lots.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, we checked it. It was from 45 to 40.
To 40, okay.
And
It
then
was.
buffer residential, is there any required buffer between these?
There are no required buffers outside of the stream buffer. We do not require buffers between residential to residential, single family, so.
And then was there discussion about fencing? I didn't see, I mean, seeing that is gate in the front, any fencing around the sides and the back?
That is not proposed on the site plan. We can certainly take that into consideration, sir.
Okay.
On the detention pond, what protection do you have on that? Is it in-ground or covered detention pond?
It will be an exposed detention pond.
Exposed,
So
okay.
typically those are fenced.
Yes.
Just for safety concerns,
Right.
you don't want children getting into that. And then you also do have landscaping. The city requires certain types of landscaping. Obviously, you want to screen it, but you also can't have root systems that would compromise the walls. So we would expect shrubbery and fencing in the
Okay.
detention pond.
Yeah, I was more the concern with the cover or not covered, right? That's all I have.
From an economic feasibility standpoint, given that you need to have backlot or in some cases in the front lot and side lot setbacks, and this is heavily wooded, from an economic standpoint, would you tend to keep the trees that are there?
Our client will keep as many trees as he possibly can from a marketing standpoint and also to avoid the penalties of having to put trees back. It's much less expensive to maintain what you have versus having to replant. Now, you may get in there and find the septic system works here and it doesn't work here. You saw the soil map that was presented. That will be engineered more thoroughly, but I can assure you our client has a financial incentive to keep as many trees as possible.
Question for staff. Given that this is a 14-home subdivision by right, is a traffic study required?
This was reviewed by the transportation engineer and it was not required, no.
Nothing else?
Anything else? For me? Brian? Good. Great. With that, I'll close public comment. Anyone want to make a motion? Brian's pulling down his.
Okay, right?
Motion to recommend approval of the preliminary plat for Hamby Manor as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and second to recommend approval of the plat as presented. Any other further discussion amongst the commission?
I would just like, if you would, Madam Chairman, explain again the preliminary plot, our decisions.
So we make a recommendation to the commissioner and we can recommend things that they should do or change going forward. But if we can also just recommend with no further comment. Is that right, Paul?
Yeah, you can provide comments. Anything you do is a recommendation submitted to the director who takes that into consideration. Of course, it has been presented to you as all compliant with the city's UDC
right.
at this point in time.
The only recommendation that I would like to see, Brian, if you'd consider this, is to consider that staff try to work with the applicant to preserve as many trees as possible, especially along the buffers.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to reiterate something about our development process. So when we have such a sensitive piece, actually anytime we have AG1 lots, the developer would come in for their LDP for the road itself, and then we just have them do limits of disturbance to create the road. It's not mass, grading. And then after the road is put in, then each individual lot is looked at to make sure that they meet the tree canopy, which I believe is 57%, or which whatever exists. So there are some areas of the lot that look like fields. Not everything is covered with trees, but so we really try as staff on the land development side to be very careful with how the land is treated and how it is developed, and not just taking down all the trees at one time and letting the developer go for whatever they want to do. So just wanted to reiterate that in our process.
Do we need that added recommendation or?
Probably not, since it sounds like that gets considered and reviewed in that, but I do like the idea of trying to preserve the trees along the buffers where possible.
Okay. So I'll try that again. How about a motion to recommend approval for the preliminary plat for Hamby Manor with the recommendation that staff work with the applicant to preserve as many trees as possible along the buffer around the perimeter of the property.
I'll second.
Further discussion? I'm sorry, we've closed public comment. That doesn't mean you can't send letters to the staff with further comments.
Right, again, this is another frustrating one where,
It's all by right, yeah.
it's all by right. They're not asking for any, and all this our property value is based upon the rights that, that it contains. And in this case, they're not asking for anything outside of those rights. So we may not, like I said, we may not like it. We may not like the 1.01 acre lots, but that's what the law, that's what the ordinances have been written into. So
Yep. And these are slightly bigger.
there's a couple of them, 1.01, 1.03, 1.0.
Okay.
So, so that's my only comment.
Yep. Okay, all of those, any further comment, discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. And again, if you have further comments you'd like to share with the Community Development Director, Ms. Wheeler, you can email her. Yes. Oh. Okay. And next on the agenda, we've got a new business to get an update on the Deerfield implementation project. Mr. Robert Buscemi, Special Project Manager.
Yeah, forget minutes.
That was tough.
Here's my full. Here's the slide.
Waiting for them to leave.
Slide. Oh, it's because it's a color. I know, that's what I thought. This thing.
I thought that last one was starting in $1 million too. Business $2 million.
Yeah.
All right, that's
This
it.
is in the middle. No.
Okay.
Maybe three.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It's like
Well, good evening, Commissioners.
Next to me, just. And it's 17 years old.
Hey.
Hello.
Yes.
All right, you know my new role, right? Special Projects Director. Specifically, I got a few projects, but this is the main one that I'm really focusing on. So it's the Deerfield implementation plan, and I just kind of want to remind the board what's the difference, why we made it an implementation plan versus a master plan for the Deerfield area. You know, the Deerfield area is the largest commercial area in the city of Milton. We did, in the last year, put it into the urban growth boundary because it is viewed as the economic engine for the city, or will be the economic engine for the survivability of the city. It's a large landmass, as you know. It's got two character areas. It's the Deerfield character area, and then north of Bethany is the Bethany character area. So the comp plan already has two character areas identified. And the reason for an implementation plan versus a master plan, just as a reminder, is master plan, you're kind of looking more
for conceptual ideas of, changes in land use, changes in overall utilization of the property, how it's going to be developed. We're really not looking for any changes in land use. We're not looking for any changes. It's in our form-based code area, so we're not looking for any major changes in our form-based code requirements. What we have here in Deerfield is an area that a lot of the development really predated the creation of the city of Milton. It was all pre-2006. So there's a lot of development there that predates the city. So it's almost an area that at this point really needs like revitalization in a sense, that a lot of these shopping centers, a lot of the commercial areas are kind of aging. We have a lot of corporate centers that are campus style, which was extremely popular in the 80s and 90s, early 2000s. I mean, they were just, that was the hot thing to do, is to build an office park, an office tower in the middle of 50 acres, 30 acres, a lot of sea of parking all around it kind of thing. Most of those, I'd say almost all of our corporate office space is vacant. We are trying very hard through economic development to fill it. We've been pretty lucky. We just signed 2 10,000 square foot tenants that are moving back into the city as a result of showing that we're really putting a lot of emphasis here. But for the most part, all our corporate centers are empty. And that's very common throughout the country at this point. Corporate real estate's really at its lowest that it's probably ever been. And that's really a difficult position to be in, because landowners that own these buildings have to maintain them, pay taxes on them, and they're empty. And they're starting to feel that pressure of saying, what do we do with this center? At some point, if we just leave it, it's just going to become blighted. We're just going to leave it there. We all know the Fry's Center, which was a retail electronics store. They closed all their businesses throughout the country. And of course, they had one large facility on Highway 9, which everybody's aware of, and that's just sitting there empty. So we have a lot of older retail establishments that predate the city. They were Fulton County, and none of those really are functioning the way the modern retail, I'll say mixed use kind of development should be operation. So the problem today is that we have all these developers going into other areas and building sort of these mixed use centers, and it is drawing a lot of that need. So you might turn around and say, well, what happened to North Point Mall? North Point Mall was like a vibrant mall when I first moved here. It was the place to go. Everybody shopped there. And all of a sudden it just kind of went dark. There's like nobody utilizing North Point Mall. So then it just sits there, and planning staff and Alphareta's got to figure out what to do with it, right? And the commission there and the council there has to figure out what to do. So with the implementation plan, we're kind of lucky in the sense that all these landowners have approached myself and the city and said, gee, Bob, we really would like to come in and figure out what we need to do to revitalize our investments. And they're all coming in at once. So when I went to council and said, look, we have a lot of this activity going on, council said, well, Bob, being that they're all coming in at once, I mean, we don't really want to see these one at a time. We really want to see, being that they're all in line and you're telling us they're here, let's go ahead and with the aid of some consulting, which we hired Cooper Carey, to help us with this plan. But let's put it all together as an implementation plan. Let's show the community and all the boards and the council what everything's going to look like. Say we accepted all, say 6 or 8 developments, and we put them all in. What is that really going to look like? How do they connect to one another? How do they interface with one another? How do they visually look architecturally? How do the road networks link them together? So we looked at it and said, well, let's conduct this implementation plan, because it's a little different than a master plan, just pulling out of the box saying, what should we do with densities, like our traditional way of thinking, right? That's what you've always seen in the past, these kind of master plans in front of you. Now it's more of an implementation, which means let's take what they're doing, put it in, plug and play, right? Let's see what it looks like, have the city and the staff influence those developments in a sense that they all look homogeneous and they all work together, right? And let's see what it all looks like and present it to the community. So there's a lot of community charrettes and input that we're looking to do as part of the plan. And we're going to lay that all out to you tonight and show you how this is all starting to look. And part of the plan also involves keeping all the boards, especially Planning Commission and DRB, involved on a monthly basis to kind of let you know what we're doing, what outreach we've done, what people's comments are, and then get input from you all to say, hey, Bob, this is what we think, and kind of steer the ship in a certain way to make sure that we're hitting everything that the city would like us to do. So with that, what happened? Did I get my agenda? Oh, okay. Do you see it? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so the agenda for tonight's meeting is to introduce you a little bit to the consultant team. Like I said, we engaged the services of Cooper Carey, just to remind you all that they did work with us on City Hall. They worked with us on the public safety complex, and they also worked with us on the wayfinding signage throughout the Crabapple area, which I think was a big hit. The project plan overview, we're going to talk about communications, which is extremely robust. We're talking about some GDOT updates, which I'll talk to you a little bit about the GDOT situation. Key dates and milestones, stakeholder groups, visual preferences, so you can start to see some of the architecture that we're looking at, and the community charrettes. And then we got some questions and feedback that we'll ask you. So with that, let me introduce you to Allison Bickers. She's really the project manager heading up this, and she can go through some of the consultant team that's been assembled to give you an idea of what we have on board.
Good evening. How are you guys? Yeah, my name is Allison Bickers. I'm the project manager with Cooper Carey. As Bob said, we've worked in Milton for a long time, and are really delighted to be working with Bob's team on this. This is a complex conundrum. A good problem to have, right, is thinking about Deerfield involves thinking about what is the market, where is it going? You have a lot. You have office that is not filled, and so thinking about where that's going in the future. But you also have a lot of opportunity from the transportation network side, the architecture, and thinking about how you implement these big ideas. How do they become a reality? Because that's really what we want to do at the end of the day, is give the city of Milton a clear path to make decisions in keeping with the guiding principles of both this plan and things you have laid out in the UDC and in your comprehensive plan and previous efforts. So because it's a complex project, we have a large team. So it includes myself and Dana Martinez, who has been at some of the meetings. She's really working on visualizing. So right now she's building a 3D model. She's putting in the developer proposals that you have gotten thus far for the Deerfield area are being pulled into that model, so we can start to see how it all looks at full build out. And then we have experiential graphics design, landscape architecture, someone who really works a lot in the mixed use arena to help us understand both the architecture and some of the nuances of mixed use development. And then Sean McClendon, who by chance is the architect for City Hall, is also really the office market expert and has done office in this area. So he really understands what the developers and owners of those office buildings are thinking about as they hold that property and try to think about what they're going to do next with it. And then on consultants, we have Steve Rowe with AEC as our civil engineer. We have Stantec to think about the big picture transportation issues, and that includes Joel Mann. We have RKG and Kyle Talente to think about economic development and market analysis, and Malika Rivers with Pontum Resources. She's a little bit different, and she thinks about how you implement these plans, find ways to get them managed and funded, whether that's public, private, or some other funding source to help, say, manage beautiful landscaping in a median of a road. That sounds really simple. It's actually a little more complicated than that. But so that's our team. So I'll let you.
So our communication, this is one of the strongest elements of this implementation plan, is ensuring that we are transparent, we get everything out to the community, and we have a pretty robust plan. Greg, our communications director, and his team really have put quite a bit of effort into this already. We've come up with our own dedicated Deerfield webpage, so you can go and see that. And they've also have been producing a lot of video and multimedia. So we actually have several videos posted already. So if anybody's listening online, please feel free to view all of them. We have our initial kickoff meeting that we just recently done, and that's online. We've done some just basic videos of Allison and I walking through the corridor and explaining to people what we're looking to do and how we're going to do it. And there'll be a whole lot more videos made. I mean, we have an endless number of videos, I think, because I think videos are really a good way to reach the general public and keep them informed. We will have renderings. We will be doing interviews with the general public, and there'll be regular updates. And then Greg has really reached out to almost every type of social media. I'm pretty proud of what he's been doing. We have a text messaging plan that, you could text people and they get text alerts, Facebook, all sorts of email blasts that are out there. We've had several articles already from news media that have been publishing articles about what we're doing. And I'm really happy with that because it's getting the word out. And public engagements, we'll go over a lot of the charrettes we're going to do and open houses. Of course, we're going to be in front of the council. I give an update monthly at the work sessions for council. So every month they get their updates. Meeting with council members, district members, to keep them informed of what we're doing. We have regular meetings with DRB chair and the chair here, Judy's involved. So we try to keep everybody engaged. And then, of course, the full boards and commissions on a monthly basis. So we were talking a lot about Deerfield, and this slide's kind of important because when we had our basic discussions, we're sitting down with Allison, right? We bring her on board, and she's been a great partner here. Phenomenal level of input. She's been really giving us a lot of personal attention. I thanked her today. I don't want to embarrass you, but she's really been a great partner here, and that's important because we sat down and we just had this brainstorming session, and we said, look, Deerfield's here, and there are some really good areas of Deerfield. I mean, even Judy raised the point, we don't really want to transform all of Deerfield. She was really good. She came out and said, there's some elements of Deerfield that are actually working and that people really like. And it's not all bad, right, Bob? It's not all, blighted office space. I mean, there are the people of Milton use the Deerfield area to do a lot of their shopping and engagement. All right, it's got some shortfalls, and then we're going to identify them and we're going to address them and we're going to work with them. But there's also a lot of good things about Deerfield. One of the shortfalls that we all decided was that a lot of people, including the way GDOT had designed the road, which was really more of a pass-through. It's like, just get me from Alpharetta to Forsyth County as quick as you can, keep me moving, and, nothing is getting done, and so just keep the traffic moving, so to speak. And we said that's not really what we're doing. Deerfield's our corporate center, right? It's our economic engine. It's and we all kept up saying the word. It's really now a destination. We're going to rebrand Deerfield. We're going to put placemaking onto Deerfield. We're going to make it so that when you drive into Deerfield, you know that you've entered Milton, right? And that's really a lot of different things that we'll implement to make it so that when you drive into that area, you know that you're now in the city of Milton, and you know that you're in the Deerfield character area. Okay, and that's our charge. Right? We're coming up and saying what kind of circles the success button here? What are the things we need to do? So I just say that because when I ask questions to you later at the end of this presentation, I'm sorry I'm so long-winded tonight, but I just sort of want to lay out that groundwork so you start thinking in those terms of what do we need to do to make Deerfield Deerfield. So one of the things we wanted to do was put some sort of brand on the project plan, not so much on Deerfield, the final one. Yes, we'll look at the final branding and get somebody to do the final brand of what it will really look like. But for the project plan, we wanted an actual logo just for the project plan, so that when we start talking to people and start putting this out there, people realize that Deerfield is now going to be a destination. And that's really important, right? Because Deerfield is going to be this great destination where you're going to want to go there at night. You're going to want to park somewhere, go shopping, go out to dinner, take a stroll, take a walk. You're going to want to go out to lunch and just walk around or get into a PTV or a golf cart and drive down to the area and be able to park somewhere and shop. And so this whole experience of this connectivity, right? And that's a strong word that you were using earlier, connectivity and experience that you're going to have. And Deerfield is going to be totally different than what it is today. And so we came up with, we like number 2, which is Destination Deerfield, and came up with a little logo there. So I just wanted to present that to you and let you think about that a little bit.
Do you want our input on whether we like 1, 2, or 3 best?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to do that now, we can pause for a minute. And
Brad, 1, 2, or 3?
I'd go 2 because in 3 and 1, it defines a little narrower than I think we are. In other words, if I looked at 3, it looks like, going to be a bunch of homes.
Right.
And
that's a business. That's a dentistry office.
That's the dentist office.
That's
we
a dentist
slipped that
office.
in.
3's a dentist office.
Yeah.
Did they sue us for putting that
Yeah,
on
right.
there? That's what I
That's what I asked.
And I was
too.
like, is that considered
I don't know if
Deerfield?
we could do that, but
Is that actually considered Deerfield? I know it says Deerfield Dentistry.
it is in the
Yeah.
form-based code area. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good with 2 also. Are those the official Milton colors that we've adopted?
Yes, we're starting to put together, right, with the brand. You were
Yeah,
putting
I
together
don't
the
know.
slides. I don't know if these are
know that these
perfectly
are-
official,
Yeah.
but today Cooper Carey came in with a bunch of sheets showing that they're applying all the branding, colors and fonts and things that they'll start applying.
Yeah, and just to split the vote, I like 1 because it shows kind of the commercial, could be retail, but that idea, but more importantly emphasizes the trees. So you have 1 vote for each.
So
We got a tie. This is, all right.
I mean, I actually like 3, but it's a building, and I just don't want somebody to say, "Oh, that's my building. I didn't give you permission to put it on the cover." Or something.
I will tell you, just as a side note, okay, keep this light. Somebody asked me, they said, look, we just want the word Milton on there somewhere too, because, a lot of people who live in Deerfield don't even know they're living in Milton.
Milton.
And we're going to change all that. We are going to brand this so that if you're living in the Deerfield area, you know you're inside Milton. And I think visually, between landscaping and the resurfacing of walls and crosswalk patterns and And all of these things will look so different than the two neighboring, the county and the city of Alpharetta, that you will just know entering Milton, entering Deerfield, that you're in the Deerfield area.
Yep. We
Bob?
can always add the subtitle, a plan for Southeast Milton.
Yeah, do something, right?
Okay, one more vote, see if we
Yeah.
can split it further.
I also agree with 3. I like 3 as well. Now, the picture, same concern I would have if you had the permission for using their business. But
a picture.
But yeah, I mean, I think a picture is great. And I mean, I just like kind of just gives you that a good visual, 2 doesn't have a picture, and I'd prefer to see a picture on the plan, because that's the whole thing. I mean, that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to create this. Here's our vision of what Deerfield's going to be, right? So projecting a vision in our plan, in terms of like, here's our project plan, here's our logo for the project plan, here's the vision that we want.
Right. And I do like the destination, Deerfield, because I could also see that bleeding over into destination Arnold Mill. I could see us using that in multiple places
For
around.
other
Milton.
places within the city, yeah.
Bob, and I've had this conversation before, when we're looking at Windward Parkway and you got Deerfield, you have the Walgreen store. How far down towards 400 is included at Milton? Because at the end, some of that's Alpharetta again.
Yes, it does spot. I'll show you a map.
Okay.
Some maps, and I'll pull that out and show you.
Okay.
And it does get a little spotty down there, and that's why a lot of people, between that and our zip code, a lot of people see 3004 and they just think that's an Alpharetta zip code. I know Milton's tried for years to get better identity there. So, but it is a little confusing when it's done that way. So it's a little extra effort that's going to be needed on our part to brand it stronger so that we really do it. And I think that's going to happen through the architecture, through even the way the roads look and the general feel that you get when you enter this area.
Yep, so to sum it up, Bob, I think we have a consensus, but you need to redesign a new building.
Redesign a new building. So we will plop a new building, and I'll have to, geez, I can't get away
Just
from
whip it.
designing buildings for the city.
But just whip one up on your spirit.
I'll just have to do that. Okay, let me just give you a quick GDOT update. So everybody knows that GDOT has stopped construction due to the fact that they had some issues with land acquisition. I'll say that as simply as I can. So they have taken it upon themselves to stop and halt the construction of what it is. Now, the city was very concerned about what we call the decommissioning efforts, because, they've ripped things up and, it doesn't look so sightly. And we met with GDOT and they were certainly on board and being a great partner, saying that they had 30 affected properties that they had disturbed. They have sent out re-entry forms to ask those landowners to give them permission to re-enter now, because at this point, they're not going to enter the property even to repair it, right? To restore it, so to speak. At the time, I had 17. I checked with GDOT earlier, late last week, and they said that they were up to 23 out of the 30. So again, I'd like to encourage the remainder of the property owners to please sign and return the form to GDOT, so GDOT can go in there. Now, what is that going to look like? Well, they're going to resod those properties. They're going to repair the fences. They're going to remove any of the sill fencing, any of the debris, which is mostly trees that you see piled up, and tree debris. Any equipment would be removed, which they've removed most of it already. They've removed most of the red cones, and they've taken that, traffic control cones. The only thing that they don't want to do is any tree replanting, because they said, look, we're going to reacquire the property that we need, right? And then, 3 years, 4 years, we're just going to start this process again. So we don't want to plant trees and then rip them out again. It's just costing the project more money. And the city sort of agreed with them on that. So we did come to a consensus, and they did say that they would do all of this. And honestly, they've been great partners so far in making sure we get this done. And they also resurveyed the entire corridor because a lot of land lots have subdivided, new owners. So it was done so many years ago. I thought it was a good idea. I agreed with them that we should resurvey the properties, which they've done, to make sure that we know all the current owners and where their property lines are and things like that. So we're really moving along nicely with the decommissioning efforts, and I'll keep you informed on a monthly basis on how we're doing with that. But I think it is important because, the city likes to make sure that everything has a nice aesthetic, and this will really stall the project, so to speak. It will delay the project for 3 to 4 years, and we don't want to live with something that looks unsightly for that much time, because it also puts a lot of pressure on not just the visual aesthetic, but on the businesses that are there, right? Because it will hurt them independently, that people don't feel like they're having a nice place to shop, and people do like to have nice areas. So now on the redesign efforts, right? So this gives us a little bit of an opportunity, not much, but a little bit of an opportunity to kind of stop, pause, and really look at what it is that we would like to do with Highway 9. So we weren't really coming in, the city really wasn't coming in saying, oh, we should redesign sort of the functionality of Highway 9. They were really coming in saying, we want to embellish the visual aesthetic of Highway 9 and the impacts on the adjoining property owners, right? We don't want to cut down their trees and wipe them out and build these walls that you see going up in Forsyth and Alpharetta that really look unsightly. So we went in with a list, and we did have a high-level meeting with GDOT with a lot of elected officials. The mayor was there, the city manager, Steve, was there. And we went in and we asked for some things. And one we asked for is to reduce the speed to 35 miles an hour. That does a lot. So with the GDOT standard, at 35, they allow me to do certain things. At 45, that list gets cut down really sharp because now the speed increases. So we said if we can get it down from 45, which was the original design, to 35, it now allows us to increase landscaping, to reduce lane widths, to just, reduce the crash zones that you're outside, right? Because you're going slower. So that in and of itself will reduce a lot of the standards that we have to live with. So then we can say to GDOT, listen, we're redesigning it, but we're still within your standard at the 35 mile an hour, right? Not the 45, because we wouldn't meet the 40. At 45, they say, Bob, you just can't do those things. So we went ahead and said, well, can we reduce the lane widths from 11 to 10 and a half? And they accepted that. And I know it doesn't sound like much, but on a 4-lane road, and then you have a decel and XL, sometimes that could be 2 to 3 feet of space. And the difference is the median can go from 13 feet to say 15 feet. Or I could shift a wall over so I'm not intruding on somebody's beautiful landscape screening. So in and of itself, that really helped us out quite a bit. And they sort of accepted that. The vertical profile redesign, that's the vertical profile of the roads. They still said they would like to keep the vertical profile at the 45 design. And I really didn't have a problem with that. That's like if you have a dip in the road, you can do it at 35, but at 45, they want that dip taken out. So I said, well, that's okay. It was one of their, they'll study it, but I don't think their expectation is to really start redesigning profiles, although we might do some profile redesign when it comes to the walls, the retaining walls. We're really coming up with some really neat ideas to lessen impact and lessen the visual impact of walls. We're going to incorporate landscaping both in the right-of-way and on the adjacent private properties. So we could tell those property owners, listen, we'll put landscaping on that property, or the developer could put landscaping on that property. So instead of a permanent easement from GDOT, which wouldn't allow that. We're going to go to a temporary easement, which means that they'll use the land and then restore it and bring it back and tell the owner, you can now reuse the property as if there was no easement on it, right? So that is helping out a lot too. Redesigning crosswalks is critical. At the 45 mile an hour, you have the fast rights. You really have an ability, like a sea that's running through. It's almost like a river running through Milton. And it's very difficult, I think, to navigate from a pedestrian standpoint from one side of that street to the other. And we're really looking and working with our partners with Cooper Carrier. We're putting a lot of tax on them, and Allison's really working hard to come up with ideas to really incorporate those crosswalks at a much stronger and more often interval. So we're not there yet. We're really working on it, but I could tell you after today's meeting, I was pretty happy with all the ideas that Allison's coming in at. Like instead of a crosswalk, well, right now they just have them at intersections and they're not really identifiable, but we can have different patterns in the asphalt, right, that show you a crosswalk. We can have them, they want them at like 1,000 minimum, 1,000 feet apart. And, Allison's coming in saying maybe we'll try to get 350, much more pedestrian oriented. I'm not saying we'll get them all, but we're really trying to push them in. So I don't want to belabor that, but Bethany Bend intersection is a priority area. We have a lot of accidents on that area, so they've agreed to do some short-term remediation just to sort of offset that. But everybody's aware that that road will no longer be on an angle. It's going to be broken. If you need, I can get some photos of that later and show it to you. And then the Crooked Creek subdivision, we're going to study doing that as a full service, which means that they would have a light. So, because it's such a big subdivision, I think when they did the original study back in 2016, those numbers weren't there, but I think the numbers would be there today. So we told them that we would restudy that. Okay, so GDOT next steps, we're creating visions and base maps. We're working on that now with the assistance of Allison and her group to potentially even shift roads over horizontally somewhat. Sometimes 4 feet can make a big difference on the impact of say, a residential subdivision that's there with their existing screening and whatnot. So if we could shift things, and then we can even shift them vertically, we can really make this corridor look much more Milton-esque. So I think that's really going to be good. We're going to identify key intersections and points, segments and roadways. Allison will tell you, we needed our cross corner. She's like, where's your intersection? Where's your key points where you can point to it and say, okay, that's a major intersection for the city, and that things happen around that circle, right? So we're looking at that because we're trying to create a main street at these intersections and crosswalks and engaging the community. We're going to have a lot of different charrettes on that, and we've invited GDOT to come in and speak to the community to let them know where they are and what their thinking is going forward. Now, some of this redesign that we're doing, GDOT has said, okay, Bob, you might be looking at adding another 12 months to this project. So instead of 3 years, it might be 4. And I said, well, that's okay, because, if you really look at what they've done in Alfred, they're 2 years behind anyway. I mean, I would rather.
How many?
How
many behind?
I would rather make it Milton-esque, put in everything we need, get it to what we want. Because, when we were having our meeting today, Allison's going, okay, what does it look like, 5, 10, 30, 50 years down? I'm thinking, geez, 1 year doesn't sound like anything to me anymore, because ultimately, whatever we do, we will live with it for the next 40, 50 years. And I think that's a huge, huge impact. Okay, so do you want to go over some of the key Milton Estate dates?
Sure. Okay, so how we are approaching this is really in 3 phases. And the first phase, which we're calling concept plan and elements, that includes the conversations with GDOT, but it also includes, we have already started meeting with the different developers who have development proposals in the Deerfield area. And we obviously we're here today at the Planning Commission, and we will be at the DRB on September 10th. We also have started having community meetings. So we had a community meeting, and you'll see pictures in a minute, on Sunday, sort of a kickoff open house to let people know what the process was. And then it looks like, I think it's 17th and 18th of September at Stone Creek Church, we will have sort of a community open house, and it's really, there's not going to be any presentation, and it's more an opportunity for the community to walk around to tables and give their feedback on different topics. We're working on architectural inspiration and landscape inspiration, and then that really, all of that culminates towards the end of October in a preliminary concept plan. What's the big guiding idea that we're going to start to then transition in phase 2 into the design manual? And the goal of phase 2, there's going to be a lot going on there where we're going to really be working behind the scenes a lot. The goal is to give you and the city council the clarity that you need to approve development proposals and end the moratorium at the end of this year. So it can be lifted, and you can begin to start to get those developer proposals and feel comfortable that it is in line with where the community and the city leadership want to see Deerfield going and be in the next 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. But that also includes landscape plans. There will be transportation analysis. There will be market analysis. There will be stormwater and those things that have to go in to support that. And then in January, we'll slated to begin phase 3. And that's really where we take that urban design manual, and we'll work with Robin to do any code revisions and that sort of that where the rubber hits the road on the implementation plan. So how do you take that, what we've said we want to see in the urban design manual, and we put it into an implementation plan. One note that I forgot to mention, involved a lot happening in phase 1 and phase 2 is also 3D visualization. As I said, we've already started some of that effort, so you can start to see, so there will be tools to see in a 3-dimensional image, what does it look like to have the Kohl's, the Orkin Associates property on Highway 9 redeveloped? What does that look like in relationship to everything that's there in a 3-dimensional way? What does the Stone Creek Church redevelopment look like? So then you can kind of see everything in aggregate and feel like you have a real understanding of where Deerfield is going. Now, one thing, and Bob mentioned this, Highway 9 plays a huge part of the Deerfield study area. This implementation plan and the Highway 9 redesign process, they are running concurrently and they influence one another. But Highway 9 there are separate meetings happening, and they're talking to, and these two processes are talking to each other, because ultimately, to the public, they are not two separate processes. They are going to end up into one Deerfield. And so we want to make sure that they're running concurrently, and the Highway 9 redesign is going to run longer than the Deerfield implementation plan process. But at the end of the day, when you have Highway 9 completed and a vision that is hopefully much more in line with a destination rather than a pass-through, you see it as one Deerfield. Okay. So one of the things that Bob and Jackie and the staff team have really done a very good job of is helping us identify, and Judy have identified stakeholder groups, which include, because one of the things that we have heard early on is that people who live in Deerfield don't feel or identify as living in Milton. And so what we want to do is make sure that we are able to reach into the Deerfield community and hear their thoughts. Of course, it's open to the whole city, but we really want to make sure we're reaching the people who live and work and really inhabit Deerfield today. And so we will be working with homeowners association, land developers, as I've already mentioned, outdoor recreation enthusiasts, business leaders, the CID, state and county, real estate leaders. Today we met with Northside Hospital to understand, what their vision might be for property they own, retail owners and restaurant owners. As I mentioned, we are doing developer integration, as you see in that picture on the right of a nice looking office building that is largely vacant. So beginning to schedule conversations with owners of property in the Deerfield area. Number one, to review proposals of those that have them for their property to understand their goals and their opportunities. And also then to help communicate what we know to be the city's vision and the community's vision for Deerfield and how the development can fulfill those goals. And then also to hopefully for those property owners particularly of the large office parcels, I think more so than the retail, hopefully inspire them to think big and to not big in terms of mass and density, but think to have an idea that really is about creating place and character versus just filling up their office alone and having seas of parking. And the ultimate goal is to have a clear vision to guide development cohesively across Deerfield for each property. Again, you have several different character areas, not several, but really 3 different character areas, I think. And I don't mean per your comprehensive plan, but it feels like you can start to break up Deerfield into different character areas, but you still want those to feel cohesive in design and look, and how people by car, by bike, and by foot experience Deerfield. And so one of the things we're starting to do is think about visual preference. And what we Cooper Carey asked the city to do, and they did a great job, is provide us some images of things that have been built in Milton that are really, that they like where they've taken the design. So these are some images that were shared with us, and they've been really, really helpful to help us think about where we want to go in the future in Deerfield. We'll have more coming on that, but did just want to review what we, and I think this ranges obviously from architecture, retail architecture, but also the type of public spaces that you might dream to have in Deerfield one day. And so, as I mentioned, and I don't know, Bob, if you want to jump in here. So we had on Sunday a community kickoff meeting, and you see here we had about 30 members of the public attend, and we went the whole 2 hours. So we did a little bit of a presentation, and then we really sat and had conversations with the community, and we had the opportunity to have people fill out Post-it notes about 3 things they love about Deerfield, and then, or that they would love to see, and one thing that they love about Deerfield today. Because I think that the thing that we can talk about is how do we make Deerfield different in the future? But there are a lot of things about Deerfield that work really well. I mean, we got to go to Target. You've got to have that opportunity to have convenience retail. Big box is not the enemy. We got a lot of comments of I want to walk more, but I also love Home Depot, right? Yeah. So you want to find that balance, right? And so again, we asked these 2 questions, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but it is, what are 3 new things you'd love to see or do in Deerfield? And then what is your favorite thing that you like about Deerfield today?
Sumit, we'll start with you since you live in the area.
Wow, put me on the spot there, huh? I know, right?
Or maybe we can start with question 2 first and let you think about.
What is your favorite thing that you like about Deerfield today? Again, I like, just because I drive down Deerfield every day. I'm in Crooked Creek, drive down Deerfield every day to go Old Milton, and just those trees, when you're driving past Verizon and all that, just all those trees or whatever that are still there. So obviously we got to incorporate that into the mix of the plan.
Okay, so some of the things that, just to let you know, some of the options we've been looking at is along Highway 9 and other roads like Webb Road and whatnot. We're looking for the developers to incorporate what we call linear parks. So maybe the first 20 feet or so, right, is more of a tree-lined kind of zone. And then we have little pocket parks within each development. So as you're driving, you're going to see those pocket parks. My envisionment is from Crooked Creek, you get into your golf cart or your PTV, and you could drive down the 10-foot sidewalk, cross at Bethany, continue driving down and shop at one of the retail establishments that we have there, and they have sufficient parking even for a PTV. So it's sort of connecting that whole spine going through. And I think those linear parks are really going to be good. We're going to show you examples of them. And we've already spoken to a lot of the big landowners along Highway 9, and they've all agreed that it's a great idea and they're looking to do it. We just have to develop it and show them what it is. So yeah, definitely a great concept. Great.
No. And I mean, just a, visionary thing, like one thing that I think is cool. And again, I don't know if this is any way of a possibility, but again, connecting, obviously you've got the businesses around Windward, making sure that all those businesses and the people for lunch and whatever else can get. When I think of Deerfield, I just think of that where Verizon and all that is. I know it's everywhere else, but like, again, what they've done in Peachtree Corners, right, with that overhead bridge, having something like that for people who are coming off of the Windward area, which is so much traffic, for all those business people coming for lunch. If there's a way where you had something like that where they didn't have to worry about crossing the street and they can just go overhead into this area, make it so much easier and more convenient. Again, I think that it's just it's neat what they've done in Peachtree Corners with that, in front of the forum, and they've revitalized that forum area. But like when you think of Peachtree Corners now, I always think of that bridge now, and it wasn't there long ago. It's only just come, but something like that. It's like where they've done Truist Park, it's the same thing where they've got that overhead bridge as well. It just makes it a lot easier for people to cross over, but having something like that in this area would just make it.
The city of Gainesville has done something similar too. Downtown Gainesville has a bridge
Like that. Yeah. So I think incorporating something like that into this area. Yeah.
Brian, your favorite thing?
My favorite thing, I'm a member at Stone Creek Church, so I love the fact that Deerfield is where my church home is. So.
Great. My favorite thing is the convenience to the variety of retail stores.
My favorite thing actually probably goes with number 2 is I don't spend a lot of time in Deerfield. I would like to see some reason to go there more.
What would draw you there? What experience in Deerfield would make you want to go there? This is a good test case.
It's tricky because you want it to be somewhat unique, right? You don't want it to be, I need another brew pub down there. So it's a very good question. I mean, there would be some, maybe more along the entertainment line, maybe theater, maybe amphitheater type thing, maybe I think we're way severely short on like theaters and like live theater productions, things like that to get and make them sticky, right? When I get over there, how do I go there for the evening, have dinner, and go to a play or something like that? So something like that. And again, it's a different angle than everybody else because I'm not looking at it from the business commercial side. I'm looking at what's going to get more people there and spend money and make that successful.
What do you leave the city of Milton to do?
What do I what?
What do you leave the city of Milton to do? Eat out? Entertain? Performing arts?
Yeah, it's pretty much that, just the entertainment side of it.
Yeah.
Well,
Fred?
Well, I just want to tack on to the entertainment part. Years ago, you'd go to Buford and You're in Beaufort. Okay. So now, I mean, every time I turn on, somebody's going to Beaufort for entertainment to that new civic area, dinner, all that type of thing. And I'm telling you, having a place at the lake, and now people are going to Beaufort like mad. And it was that entertainment type of thing that has really driven retail as well as that. So I'm kind of stealing with.
Oh, wait, can I change then? I want to change my thoughts.
The other part, again, back to the question on retail, there's been some good small restaurants in that strip on Windward that haven't made it. So your point of getting those people who are in all that industry across the street over was, I think, fantastic, because those people were, I get, not enough, as we used to say, A's through the door. And I think that's what's happened. So there's got to be some way to stimulate that area because it's a good retail. I mean, the base is there.
I was just going to add, you two are onto something, because the strongest portion of the retail market right now, post-COVID, office is dead. And part of the reason that office workers, they just don't go to restaurants anymore because they're not in the office every day. And so restaurant is hard, but entertainment is the strongest segment of our retail market right now.
Well, if you look at demographics, should be pretty strong for that up here.
Yeah.
There should be plenty of dollars to chase after that.
Yeah.
And it's really a broad base. I asked one of our mixed use expert, I said, what does a retail broker consider entertainment retail? It's everything from axe throwing to putt-putt to different varieties and smaller formats. I mean, it's anything that has recreation, could have a recreation component to it, or it could have a performing arts component to it.
Cummings City Center has done a really nice job with that little amphitheater, the putt-putt next to it.
Yeah.
That was
Live music.
Live music.
I think this is where we really need your help is, it can't be, and I mentioned kind of tongue in cheek, but we don't want another brew pub here. All this stuff is very popular now. Like you said earlier, we're going to be, don't we sort of stuck in a bad way, but we're going to have this for the next 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
Where are things going? Where do you guys as consultants see the entertainment interest going? Is it going back to live performances? Is it going to other areas? Who else has done this well? Because again, I don't want to be, you got to go where people are going. It's the Wayne Gretzky, skate where the puck is going to be. We need to build, not just another farmhouse, live, work, play area. We need something that's going to be not date itself. Well, oh yeah, that was done in 2024. That was built in 2025. Like we can do with a lot of stuff now. So how do we look forward and build to what's going to be rather than, what's out there right now?
Yeah. And I think one thing that we've talked about too is how do you provide that flexibility to be able to evolve with the market? Because obviously where the market is today isn't where it's going to be in 15 years, but we don't know where that place is going to be. And so how do you create a system, a transportation network that allows for flexibility? Because I think your code allows for that flexibility to adjust. And some of it may also just be the biggest hindrance is sometimes just the actual transportation network. And so how do you start to build in a grid system of connectivity that allows flexible development?
I think too in this area, it lacks something I'd like to see is community gathering where you can have a comedy, bring a chair, we'll have a comedy show on a green space, not some of the entertainment can be very casual.
Right.
Yeah.
And, or, it's movie night or, so a place where there is a small stage. I'm not talking a big amphitheater. We don't need a Verizon amphitheater. We need a small stage where people can pull up a chair, bring their kids, let them run around, get their energy off. But
Kind of like what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Or a hockey arena.
There you
Has
go.
anybody thought about
That's
that?
it. An NHL hockey arena.
I knew it.
Okay. Sorry.
But I did have but back to your point though, where you're saying that, potentially there's not as much, let's say, in lunch or, because a lot of people aren't in the office. But, and again, you guys have probably done the research on this. If you now develop, and we're obviously, this is our main commercial corridor here, right? We're trying to get, like you just said, and in your presentation, Bob, 10,000 square feet tenants have come in or whatever, right? If you build this and you have this entertainment area and businesses need to put their business somewhere, and that gives them the incentive to put their businesses here. And now you're going to have those office people there, not only for lunch, but in the evening or whatever. Obviously, you're going to have more and more residential people around as well who can go and utilize this too. So I think, kind of like the old saying, if you build it, they will come. If you have this here and we want other commercial businesses who are going to have people in their office or whatever kind of businesses there are, this is going to incentivize them to have that here.
Yeah, and I think it makes your office buildings that you already have actually more competitive, because the hardest office space to lease is suburban office space in an office park. Because office workers do not want to have to drive 30 minutes to the office and then they can't walk anywhere. There's too much competition. And so what you're talking about, sort of building in some of that entertainment, actually makes that office space more attractive to people leasing that.
Yeah,
space.
why why did Microsoft or whoever else go to Avalon, right? All of that is right there. It just makes it so much better for their workers that have to come, but everything is there for them.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think one thing that we've talked about, and I think at the advice of some of the stakeholders, is also thinking about really trying to reach the younger generation and asking the question, what would keep you in Milton? What would make you come back to Milton after you graduated college? And start to ask that question, because this is an area potentially that could be attractive to young native Milton kids, but also a good place potentially for people like as people decide to downsize because they don't want to live in a large house, but they want to stay in Milton and they want to stay in their community. They have a network. Their churches are here. Their community is here. Where is there a place for them to stay? And they may not be driving their car very often. And so how do we start to think about that generational, how could this serve multi-generations in Milton that are really, really want to be in the city of Milton versus anywhere else?
Or even something as simple as a very well done food truck park, right? Where it's not in some parking lot, but again, it can rotate. It's whatever's in season or whatever is the food du jour. Yeah. And it's not building a firm building, but again, the key is to make it look nice and not like an RV park.
Yeah. And there are some really good examples of successful food truck parks that have sprung up all over the country, really. Now, I was in one last week, surprisingly, that was old fashioned car wash. And the car wash owner, it just wasn't right for him to redevelop it yet. He made it into a food truck park. It is the most charming, fun little space. So those are also actually good. You can think of something like Fry's. You could could you activate that space temporarily at some point with something like that's not the right answer necessarily, but just to say, they're great activators to get people used to thinking about using Deerfield differently. Because some of it is also, how do you get people to think differently about Deerfield? Because it's hard to say, what would you love to do without thinking about it the way it is today?
Okay. Otherwise, you have Bob's email if you have any other ideas.
Yes.
And we'll see him next month.
And feel free to come to all our community events, because I'd love to show you, what the boards look like and get your input and kind of document it. But we'll We'll be here.
Well, I
most of
think
the day.
the thing you're doing, coming up with at the church with the feel of the truck deal, will be an opportunity to get the younger people there and start tapping that market. I'll be very interested to see how that goes.
Some of the feedback we've got back already, just quick, I don't want to run the meeting too late, but some of the young people have come in and said, we want to be able to get around on bicycle. You know, somebody else said, look, we want to be able to let our kids go to Deerfield unaccompanied. You know, not that we feel like we have to drive them and watch them. I mean, they're teenagers, you know, we should be allowed to get them out there and allow them to experience some of this area without us having to chaperone them all the time. So we are getting feedback from them, and we will be having stakeholders that are just the younger, you know, maybe 15 and 30-year-olds. I mean, sometimes, you know, 25-year-olds, like, what is it going to take to get them back?
Well, again, it's a nice aggressive schedule.
Area.
Yeah, if you look at it, I believe it's a nice, you know, compact everything into having a lot of the conceptual stuff done in the next 4 or 5 months, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And this is a classic example. I've always said, we didn't get here by luck, right? Milton is in Milton by luck. It's taken a lot of the planning, a lot of the foresight, a lot of the, you know, the consultants bringing in different venues, and a lot of opening up to the residents. Hey, what do you want? What do you think we need here?
Yeah.
So again, we haven't gotten here by luck. This is a great example of the non-luck.
Yeah, it's been very intentional. All right, well, thank you all.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
I think that's what we did, right? Can we close it?
Next up on the agenda, and it was introduced at last, and I believe has been advertised, Miss Emily.
I'm just going to pull up the calendar so it's on the video really quick. So give me 1 second. And then, okay. Yeah, so good evening, commissioners. Like we discussed last month, we have to flip the last 2 meetings of the calendar year. This is the same schedule that I've distributed to y'all last month. We just put it on the agenda for this month and would like to bring it before you to be approved to be changed. We had those last couple of weeks of those months are really short due to what days the holidays are. So all of the boards and commissions are kind of fighting over days over there. So we had to compromise a little bit, but these are the 2 dates. So Thursday, November 14th is the new November meeting date, and then Thursday, December 19th. 2 Thursdays, one goes a little bit earlier than normal, and one's just the day after normal. But yeah, that's basically it. If anyone wants to approve it, that'd be great. But if
Anybody have
not-
any challenge with this?
It's already in my calendar.
Already in my
Yep.
calendar. I'd like
All
to
right.
make a motion that we adapt the updates to the November and December meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
What do we have coming up in September? I think I saw
We have a couple of
advertised
text
some
amendments, so yeah.
some text amendments, some
Yeah.
code amendments.
And then I guess we'll come back with an update on the short-term work program. since
Okay.
We have some time, and
The arborist.
the arborist has a
the tree
quarterly
waiver
report.
report will be.
Seeing that I am going to miss that, could we move like the next 9 months of text amendments to next month?
Sorry, these
that
are
be
pretty
okay?
straightforward.
I'm going to update the UDC.
Do I move that? Do I hear a second?
We're moving them all till October when I can't be here.
Well,
why
I think
he
we have
wanted
another
to move
set in
it.
October as well.
Oh, I don't know
so.
about that then. As vice chair, I don't think that's a good idea.
Anything else for the good of the order?
Nope.
Thank you all. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Commissioner
Second.
Shaw has moved to adjourn, seconded by Commissioner Edwards. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?